How do I know anything at all? Hi, my name is Ted Rosenblatt, and I'm here with my father, Dr. Rod Rosenblatt, and this is Talks with Dad Rod. This is an overly simplistic question, but it's meant to go low and slow over the plate for you, so you can kind of tackle the apologetic task here. But this is a little, and this delves into philosophy as well.
Yeah. First of all, I got nothing in seminary on it. 0, which tells you a lot about seminaries. For me, it was like being on another planet to go there. I was a natural sciences major. My classmates weren't. One other guy out of 70.
Which seminary did you go to? It was Springfield, was it not? Was that the one?
No, it was in Ohio, and the whole thing was turning left theologically, all of them. If you're thinking of going to seminary, ask your pastor. There are only about 4 or 5 worth giving any money to in the whole U.S. Anyway, that was not a part of my training. I had to do that after finishing what we now call the MDiv, and I turned down a doctoral offer at the St. Louis Seminary and went instead to study at little unaccredited Trinity Evangelical Divinity School in Deerfield, Illinois, just so I could study under Dr. Montgomery. Now, Dr. Montgomery had been trained at Cornell and was converted to Christianity during his years at Cornell. For those who aren't used to it or not familiar with this, Cornell was founded to be excellent competitor to Harvard and Brown and the other Ivy League schools, but without any of that religious crap, even on the curriculum. So he was converted while at Cornell, and then later began to become interested in the case for Christianity. Read a lot of C.S. Lewis, a lot of Edward John Carnell, and I went to study under him. Basically, it's along the lines of the late James Sire's book, Why Should I Believe Anything at All? InterVarsity Press. It's a good one to consider.
We've linked to that one before.
Yeah, Why Do I Believe Anything at All? Jim Sire. And the case that Dr. Montgomery builds is not new, but it's nicely synthesized into short. All of this I highly recommend you get in a lecture series he gave all over the United States, over and over and over and over and over again, to Christian laity. The pastors were welcome, but it was designed for the laity. 1517.org markets that in audio format, and the title of the series is Sensible Christianity. That's where you should go to get the thing in lecture format. If this works right, I'll have outlines of every lecture done by my students before I retired. First, he builds the case from the 4 Gospels. Are they historically reliable or no? Just that. Are Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John good historical sources? If they're not, the whole argument collapses. But if they're good historical sources, he works from there to Jesus and what were the key events in his life. The early church argued that Jesus was the promised Jewish Messiah from miracle and from fulfilled prophecy from the Old Testament. If that case is sound and the evidence is good that he was more than a man, then it rests on solid sources. That's the beginning of it.
So, and this question that we're doing today is a little broader than what we tend to hone it down into the apologetic task, like what you were just doing. And I think that the broader sense of what we're asking today, how can we know anything at all, is starts to lean into Aristotle and Plato and so
Sure.
forth, and that leads into human sensory perception. How do we know that the world around us is real?
Yep.
That if we touch things, that they are not just being our senses aren't giving us bad data.
Yep.
And made up nonsense about what the world around us and that sort of thing.
Yeah, if that's true, I wasted 3 years out of my 4 as an undergrad. So I was in the lab, not in the sociology lectures.
Yeah, you were headed towards becoming what your father was doing and being a surgeon.
Right.
And you got to know reality very, very closely for that one.
Yep.
You accept certain basic premises about the world we live in so that you can actually, cut into somebody and do the surgical task well.
Yeah, you don't have time to ask, is this body real? Let the philosophers do that.
So getting, not dwelling on that too much, but the next, one of the following questions, which, we intend to sort of tackle in a different episode. I don't want to get too deep into that here, is going to be, what is our perception of historical events? What is our perception once we get away from the tactile and are these things real? And that is human experiences, experiencing things, and people writing things down and telling stories about what they've witnessed and how they hand that down to the coming generations.
Yep.
And the question is, how can I trust that?
Yeah. We have a generation. Lewis one time was lecturing to a group back in his day, and he thought the key juncture was going to be students asking about miracle. It wasn't. He was surprised. That wasn't it. What was it? It was that history is doubtful because it took place a long time ago. It's the time gap that the students wanted to ask about. Interesting.
Did anybody ask, how long ago then would you trust? Try to get a baseline?
Yeah.
So the kids, try to get a sense of where the kids' trust starts to fall away.
Right.
What is that? 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago?
Right. Very interesting.
I'm not in that class, but that would have been fun to find out.
Yeah, and why? Why do you believe in the last 40 years but not before it?
Yeah, do you believe that there was an Abraham Lincoln?
Right.
Do you believe that there was a JFK?
Right.
Do you believe that there was a Reagan? Using major prominent figures in our existences.
Sure. And we have to acknowledge there are good historians and bad historians. The good ones report the facts with fidelity, and the bad ones don't. I mean, the chances I'm going to find out about United States history by reading some stupid Marxist are zero.
Well, I'll leave the political discussions out of this. I know it's funny because I was in there helping you record some of your stuff before you retired. And it was funny how much of your things you would stick stuff in there, and I would go, "Oh no, I got to edit that out later."
Yeah.
But it's always a lot of fun. I think it's too bad kids don't know what they're missing now that you're not doing your lectures anymore, because as your ex-students will testify to, they were a lot of fun. Dad used to, if you're getting out of line, Dad was known to chuck chalk at you, and the students were amazed at how accurate he could be at nailing you from across the room. If you were mouthing off. And I have certain students that are now friends that were blessed with being hit. So this is sort of a precursor. We just had a question on our last episode about whether we need to be narrow when Jesus says that the narrow is the way. And we had a question just pop up that we were talking about, that somebody commented on YouTube about, basically this is all just made up nonsense. This is fairy tale. It's fictional. This is people just telling each other a story, sort of comment.
And another thing that's common in America, we are inveterate pragmatists. That is, the good is that which works. And boy, have we got that in our blood. And the idea is that all religions are completely subjective. There's no objective basis for any of them, so pick one that pleases you, or pick one you like. I mean, the American mind is set up for that. Okay, I'll go looking and see one I like.
We are always trying to find a way to get something that helps me now.
Sure.
We're always measuring on how does this help me. And,
Absolutely.
and we here at 1517, and as Lutherans, we don't talk about Christianity being helpful.
Right. And that's fine, because it's already in the minds of your hearers all the time. You sort of need to go in there with a broom and make a dustless place for something new. We don't have to supply the pragmatism to an American hearer. They're built of it.
We keep doing this as part of our apologetic task, where we walk into the room and say the focus should be, is this true?
Yeah, the American will be saying, "Will it do me any good?
Can I get a new car if we become a Christian? I'll just suddenly become materially wealthy and I'll be blessed by this, creature in the sky that people seem to say."
And the answer is not in the way you're thinking. Some of the verses say, if you want trouble, become a Christian. There are verses like that in the Gospels. Not happiness, not fulfillment, not all the American virtue. If you want trouble, there are verses like that.
My rhetoric was, if you want your worst life now, become a Christian.
Right.
You will be hated for my name's sake.
Right.
So it's an anti-sale. But the question ultimately is, we make up gods all the time. We've got all these gods on offer that we could go and try. There's a menu of them. Yep. You look at the coexist bumper sticker, and you see all the different competing ideas about gods and worship.
And with regard to our question today, how would you adjudicate between a true one and a false one?
And on that, I'm going to stop, because we can keep going and this will be another episode. So I hope this is helpful for you. And the goal is that it might create more questions. So you kind of want to raise your hand and ask some questions, and that's fine. We're going to end up tackling some more here in just a moment. So I hope this is helpful for you. Come to 1517.org for more, and you'll be able to find Sensible Christianity at our shop. You can go to shop.1517.org to find that audio series there in MP3. Talk to you next time on social media, or see you. We'll talk to you on social media, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks. Thank you for joining us on Talks with Dad Rod, part of the 1517 Podcast Network. This podcast and all 1517's content is made possible through financial support by listeners just like you. Please visit 1517.org for more. And please consider clicking on the donate button and making a recurring or one-time contribution to help us share this good news in a world which so desperately needs it.